Live on a Monday. It's the 14th of April. We are inside 10 days out from the 2025 NFL Draft, and we're so glad to be with you to kickstart a new, fresh week here. I'm Bobby Trossett, as always, joined alongside my partner and co-host, Sarah Ellison. We're glad you're with us. Welcome inside the vault on this Monday, and we got a lot to get to over the course of the next hour or so. Finally, it's a jam-packed episode with content, Sarah, instead of us just fishing for it. We had plenty to get to from over the weekend, including Bill Belichick's rare admission that he made regarding Lamar Jackson in a new book that was just released. So we'll get into the specifics of that. We'll also take a look at the message that Lamar Jackson sent the NFL world over the weekend. He and Isaiah Likely were having some fun back and forth on X, and if you needed reason to get fired up for the 25-26 season, well, look no further than a couple minutes from right now. ESPN draft analyst Mel Kiper pounded the table for one specific prospect that he has mocked and others have mocked to Baltimore. We'll have the latest prospect visits that have reportedly either already happened or are happening in Baltimore and everything else in between. So great to see you. Awesome to hear in our pre-call that your kids had a successful weekend at Annie. It was an awesome weekend for golf fans. It was just like, let's get it. We got a lot to get to today.
Yeah, it definitely was a good weekend. I watched Annie Jr. probably 5 times. I know they performed about 6 times just since Friday. I had also seen a sneak peek on Thursday, so that's where I got my 5th. But kids are exhausted, absolutely exhausted. Aiden was upset. He really wanted me to not make him go to school today. I don't know. I felt like all the other kids were still going, including his younger sister. So he went to school with his head down because he was so exhausted, wanted a day off, but I did not give it to him. I don't know, Bobby. Maybe I should have been kinder, but I was not. And you know what is also not kind? History. History to Bill Belichick. History is not kind to him because we've all seen what has happened since 2018. And we all know the story of how the Ravens drafted Lamar Jackson, trading back in to the first round in number 32. Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles moved out for the Ravens to get Lamar Jackson. But maybe many people don't remember, at least outside of New England, that the 31st pick was for the New England Patriots. And of course, they still had Tom Brady at the time. But Bill Belichick, looking back and how things all worked out in his new book, which the Boston Globe got a sneak peek of It's not ready yet just for buying. It's called The Art of Winning, but the Boston Globe got a sneak peek, and they leaked or teased, if you will, that the GOAT, Bill Belichick, admits that he made a mistake not drafting Lamar Jackson at number 31, even with Tom Brady on his roster.
Yeah, that's getting some run. And I'm sure, like you said, going to use it as a promotional tool as well to get ready for what this book is called. It's The Art of Winning, Lessons from My Life in Football. Of course, Bill on the other side of 70 now, still coaching, going to college, going to be the head coach and is the head coach, but it will be his first season this fall at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, of course. But Sarah, the crazy part is here. One, I think there's two crazy parts. One, a look back down memory lane, because you're right. At 31, the pick before the Ravens traded back into the round to get Lamar, they went with Sony Michel. Productive player for them, running back, won a Super Bowl, so on and so forth. They also had another. They passed on Lamar twice. At 23, they went with Isaiah Wynn, an offensive tackle out of Georgia. So just a reminder that that's what the 2018 draft looked like in the opening round for New England. The second part of it, Bill Belichick very rarely admits mistakes. Now, there weren't a lot of blemishes on his resume in New England over the years, and that's part of it. But this is a big deal. Of course, there's a little bit of regret there.
I mean, all 31 other teams should regret it, you'd think. But then when Lamar was partially available, they didn't go out of their way to try to make up for it. But I imagine they do regret not drafting him. And Bill Belichick is right. Like, it's just so many people were just stuck into the ways of a traditional quarterback. It was hard for them to see it. I'm sure it was hard for them to see going from a traditional drop back passer who really couldn't move at all. He's a definition of a statue quarterback in Tom Brady, and then trying to change your offense around somebody who's as dynamic as Lamar. But it seems like it should be easier than you would think to get that done. And you're right. Sony Michel was productive. I think he had 1,200 yards and 6 postseason touchdowns. So he was a large part of winning that Super Bowl. And yet at the same time, could you imagine if the New England Patriots went from Tom Brady to Lamar Jackson? I mean, that's like going from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, right? Where you continue to have one franchise quarterback after another, Hall of Fame quarterback after another. That's exactly what it would have been. And then a lot of people talk about how Lamar Jackson saved John Harbaugh's job. Would Bill Belichick still be in New England right now? Had he drafted Lamar Jackson? Yeah, I'd say it's a mistake. And then I just looked up Isaiah Wynn's numbers, their earlier draft pick. Just so not worth it. Like in 2019, he started 8 games. Then he went 10. Then he started 15. And then in 2022, he only started 7. And then he went to Miami for 2 years where he started 7 and then 3. So not an illustrious career, especially with, what'd you say, the number 17 pick?
It was 23. It was 31 and 23.
23. Okay. So not what you would hope for with the 23rd overall pick. And yeah, I think that Bill Belichick, I would love to ask him this. I will never get him on our show. Don't think it, well, I guess you should never say never and shoot for the stars. But if I ever got him, I would ask him, do you think you'd still be coaching New England if you had drafted Lamar Jackson?
You know what? Hindsight's always 20/20. we all know that. We've all had examples of that in our lives. But the other part of the puzzle here is when you think about team building, those 2 players that we just referenced that went in front of Lamar that year, they could have gone on to highly productive Hall of Fame careers, Sarah, at their respective positions, running back and offensive tackle, and it's still not quarterback. It's you had the chance, and a slew of teams had a chance to go for Lamar. And in New England's case, to your point, you had a chance to make him Tom Brady's successor. But if he wasn't in the right system, what what would have happened? How long would Tom have? Would anything have changed? It's a woulda, coulda, shoulda type of thing. Would Tom have left earlier? Would Tom have left when he did in 2020 and gone on to Tampa Bay? Would that have motivated him more? Even though part of what this book is about, also in that same teaser, was kind of detailing the fact that they didn't make that happen financially, and Tom ended up walking, was a huge, and that's part of Bill's other regret as well. Even though I'm sure if Tom were to be under a lie detector, maybe he'd say something along the lines of, look, I needed to get out of Bill's shadow. I needed to get out of what was the tandem. Yes, we had so much success together, but I needed to prove to myself and to the NFL world that I could win without him. And he did exactly that. Bill, not so much. And now he's ousted in New England, back to the college ranks. Mm-hmm. Interesting stuff. This book will be out. Did you see a date anywhere in some of your prep? I hadn't seen a date yet.
I did not see a date. I'm sure it's forthcoming.
Yeah, okay.
Meanwhile, Robert Trossett, Lamar Jackson sent a very simple, yet, maybe a small message to the NFL world over the weekend. And it kind of shows us where his mind's at. I'm sure where it's been at, which is that we haven't been able to talk to him really ever since the Ravens lost in the divisional round in Buffalo, right? That was the last time we've heard from Lamar, I believe, outside of Twitter and social media. And so somebody else had posted just an absolute beautiful pass from Lamar from the season. I believe this was against the Cleveland Browns. Lamar Jackson, quote, retweets it saying 2025/26 loading. He can't wait. And guess who else can't wait? Isaiah Likely, who responded to Lamar and said, literally, boy, I can't wait. So these two guys, I mean, how can you not, whenever you go out in a way that you don't want to, you think you should have gotten further, all you want to do is get that bitter feeling out of your mind, out of your soul, out of everything. And then nothing tastes as good after a loss. So these guys were coming up on the draft. After the draft, finally, offseason workouts will begin. These guys want to get back at it.
And this is the duo that we all want to see, right? And as much as we've been kind of projecting Isaiah to be in that, 500-600, so somewhere around there receiving yards category, just given how much other mouths there are to be fed all throughout the offense. I think when you think about the explosiveness, the improv ability between these two, almost the unspoken, nonverbal communication, much like Mark as the security blanket has been for Lamar. The highlight reel is starting to get lengthy, Sarah, between these two, number 8 and 80. So, yeah, if you, like I said, if you needed a little bit of boost, being that we are 10 days out from the draft, and then the slow period begins after that, even though there will be OTAs and mandatory minicamp, look no further, because these two guys are chomping at the bit there, and it's mid-April. So hopefully they can channel that excitement, channel that anticipation, use it in the right ways this offseason. Workout program begins one week from today, the 21st. So
with the rookie minicamp first, I believe. But here's what's not crazy. Here's what's predictable is, of course, when Lamar tweets that and Isaiah replies, the predictable critics come out and say, oh, 2025 is loading just for you to go out early again, for you to be knocked out early. And one could say, oh, well, Lamar's just setting them up to do that, right? Don't care. What attitude do you want from your leaders when they have been knocked out early more than once? Last year, 2023, 2019. And so what do you want your leader to do? To go and hide? To go and not be a leader and say things publicly to get your guys going, saying, you know what, it's okay to shoot for the stars again, and it's okay to say it with your chest out? And it's the perfect week to do it, Bobby, Easter week, which is where we celebrate renewal and rebirth and starting fresh, starting new, and leaving the past behind. I want somebody that's not afraid, knowing exactly what the critics are going to say. I know exactly what you're going to say. You're going to take the low-hanging fruit, and you're going to use the lack of playoff success that we've had. Good. I don't care. Good. I'm just going to go right in my critic's eye. I'm going to go right for what our weakness has been. I'm going to go right for where we have fallen short before, and I'm just going to attack it. And I'm not going to let critics make me hide or not stick my chest out or not have big expectations. None of that. Like, it's loading and we're going for it again.
He's been attacking his off-season fitness regiment with Spence Fit, who, of course, is his personal trainer, former Louisville teammate, if memory serves as well. So these guys are getting some work done by the pool, somebody's pool. There's a ladder over there. Make sure that ladder stays right there. All right. That better be a sturdy ladder. Lamar's getting some, for the audio-only audience he's getting in some medicine ball sit-ups. And Spence, his trainer, is throwing them to him, and then he'll essentially catch it in stride while not. Are his feet down? Yeah, his feet are down. So just some good core work out there. And then, of course, the guy who's setting the tone, we all know what Derrick Henry's up to at Sanders Fit down in Dallas. For those of you who are keeping track of what he's up to, those are 120-pound dumbbells, Sarah. 120-pound dumbbells, and he is lunging, making it look effortless. 240 pounds total he's picking up. That right there is light work for the king.
Well, let me go back to this one. This one's cracking me up with Lamar Jackson. You kind of mentioned for the audio-only people that he's first of all, he's on the concrete, okay? He's got no, like, yoga mat or some sort of padding. There's a random, looks like a chair from inside that's just sitting there. He's got his cell phone to the left of him. The ladder, I don't know, they must be doing work outside. This is like old school, prior to you making it big, prior to college. Let me just go in my backyard. It's just that this backyard happens to have a pool in it. Now it looks pretty nice, but it's not what we're seeing from King Henry, where he's in this gym with this like $1 million equipment, surrounding him. Like, Lamar's just like, oh, you want to do a workout? You just want to go to the backyard? What does Spence have? I don't know what he's got on, some sort of like, I don't know. Those are not sneakers. It's just like, let's just get this workout in right here on the concrete. No problem.
Here's the funny part. And first of all, I don't know if that's Spence throwing the ball, right? Spence could be the one filming it. Who knows? Okay. Spence Fit is obviously the guy who trains Lamar, and he has in these types of environments since the moment we really learned of him, to your point there, right? It's been these backyard style type of environments in random fields, or in this case in a backyard. Like, Lamar doesn't have a mat underneath him. Like you said, he's right on the freaking pavement. He's on the concrete part of this pool, and that's not great for the tailbone, but no, that's how he and Spence choose to do their offseason work. And it clearly works for Lamar, who is consistently in the best shape of his life, as it appears, with his God-gifted abilities on the football field. But yeah, when you go from this to Sanders Fit in Dallas, it's a hilarious. Now, there are very different priorities when it comes to strength training between the two, and that's normal for quarterbacks versus running back.
Different for sure.
We're not saying that Lamar needs to be grabbing 120-pound dumbbells, because I don't know if that's his, that's his number one priority. But it is hysterical knowing that two future Hall of Famers have completely different weightlifting regimens.
Well, and I'm sure Lamar obviously gets in the gym. It's just that this one right here is a little different. Total fitness, no total fitness in that one.
Entire fitness, right? The entire gym.
Is it entire gym? My bad.
Oh yeah. How can you forget that
right
one?
Around here.
How could I forget that one? The entire gym. From the entire, remember, and those were a few of the little trails of hints that we would get throughout the whole contract saga. It's hard to forget that. from a couple of years ago. Should we get to some super chats and also a Manta read?
Yes, sir.
We'll begin with our newest channel member. It's John R. Welcome to the channel membership here inside the vault. You're a Voltron now, John. We appreciate you. I mean, all of you guys are Voltrons, but when you become a channel member, you're an official Voltron here inside the vault. You also threw in a super sticker for us. Appreciate you, John. Thanks for the love. And if you guys are interested in joining our channel membership opportunity as well, you can visit the show notes. There's also, it's actually not a pinned comment right now. We have the Manta discount code in the pinned comment, but you can learn more about what we're offering and what we rolled out last month by visiting the show notes. And Heather McCubbin, Sarah, dropped in a super chat today, who's also a channel member of ours.
Heather says, 2 GOATs speaking on Lamar is major love and respect. That solidifies how great LJ is. And it is funny, both, I don't know, she's saying 2 GOATs. Who was the second? There's Bill Belichick. I don't know who the other one was.
Maybe just referring to
Tom Brady, maybe?
Tom back in the day.
Both Tom and Bill have been very effusive with their compliments. And by the way, it did remind me, I don't know if you remember this, but there was like a presser where Lamar Jackson talks about his impression of meeting Bill Belichick. And Lamar's like, he smiled. He smiled at me. He's like, I didn't know that Bill Belichick smiled. Like, he was like weird to like see some teeth there, right? And see that. And so he smiled because he likes him, but he's probably frowning again because of his mistake.
Absolutely. Appreciate you, Heather. And appreciate you guys for being with us today, Tila. There are over 1,200 concurrents. Please like the video on your way in. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. And hit that notification bell so you can be notified of when we're dropping our daily live content. And that now brings us to today's brand sponsor. And it's our friends at Manta Sleep. They've been with us for, close to 2 years now, whether it's in season, whether it's the off season. And we really appreciate their continued support as we get ready for draft season. And of course, as I attempt to bring up the mantasleep.com, my screen freezes, and now it just got back to me. So let me bring you over. If you click on the link that's included in the show notes, it'll bring you to mantasleep.com.
And if you find something, it's showing Derrick Henry.
Of course it is.
Still, yes.
Of course it is.
StreamYard raising their prices, but there's a lot of glitches, Bobby.
Going back to our Friday late afternoon conference call. But if you find something you like at mantasleep.com, you can use our discount code, and that'll get you 10% off your next purchase. So that's VAULT10, Vault 10, VAULT10. And as you've probably learned by now, if you haven't already, there's just so many different options on here to enhance your sleep. And every single mask gives you full blackout, meaning just a soothing darkness when you're trying to get to sleep, if that's what you prefer. I know I do. This one right here, the Bluetooth option, gives you just a different feature and white noise and the opportunity to listen to some sort of sound if you want while going to bed. The Manta Sleep Mask Pro is the one that I know our families use. The Silk and the original sleep masks, good options as well. There's a kids option. The steam mask is great as well. The cool and the weighted mask, just a bunch of different options here, including the white noise machine. So appreciate Manta for the support. You can click on the link that's included in the show notes to learn more. On with the show we go to Mel Kiper, Sarah.
Mel Kiper. So he is always fun to listen to. There's definitely different types of draft analysts to listen to. Some guys are just like so into the weeds that they're better in written form. And then there's some guys that can translate it to video. And Mel Kiper has obviously been doing this for decades, so he can translate it. And he was on with the guys at the Lounge, the Ravens official podcast. And I thought it was interesting, Bobby, because we have seen that Mel Kiper continues to put Malachi Sparks as his projected pick for the Ravens. And I've been curious why he keeps sticking to that, right? Because all we do is have write-ups. We're not really getting the full explanation. And I was even more curious because the first question that they posed to Mel Kiper was, what do the Ravens need to get over the hump, right? They're knocking on the door, a Super Bowl door. The last 2 years, anytime Lamar finishes the season healthy, that's their aspirations. And so they ask him, like, what's it going to take to find what position, what player will help them get over the hump? And Mel says, oh, pass rusher. And he talks about how the Ravens, with the offense, they play with the lead the vast majority of the time. And so he says that you got to have a defense that's going to close things out. Like, you got to finish the job. And he said the best way you can do that is with a pass rusher that can get to the quarterback. So I'm like, why is this guy so high on Malachi Starks then? Why does he continue to push him when there could be other pass rushers there? And so he gave his answer to that. And it was convincing, Bobby. I felt like it was pretty convincing. Here's what he had to say about Malachi Starks.
I love guys that have great football IQ. Those are smart football players. Those are versatile football players, but just ballers. And Malachi Starks, to me, this past year, they moved him around. I mean, when you can just focus on one spot and one role, and he can wear a lot of hats. There's no doubt about that. But the range he shows, the ability of the tackling ability, which some people question this year, he didn't have the best year he could have had. He did not have the year he had 2 years ago. But he didn't have the interception until he had the great interception against Clemson. He didn't have that. So his career total would have been a lot higher had he had more opportunities this year. But yeah, they were moving him around. So at the end of the day, Malachi Starks, to me, you have to go back to 2023. And if you did, going into the year, guys, I had him as the 7th or 8th best player in the draft.
Wow.
And I always try to go back to that. I always try to go back to early August, mid-August, when those ratings boards start to come out and become formulated, and I finalize my opinions going into the year. Malachi Starks was right there. And as like I say, one of the top 6, 7, 8 best players in this draft. So when you start talking about him in the late 20s, where the Ravens are picking, we talk about value in the draft. How do you get value? You get value either by a guy being injured, banged up, and prevented him from playing to the level of his talent, or he was misused, talent around him wasn't the same. For whatever reason, it just didn't click. It just didn't work to the level it did the previous year. In Malachi Starks' case, that was what happened. So now you can benefit from that. You don't get great value picks because the guy played great. You get great value picks because there's a question. Something went awry, whether it was injury, not playing up to the level expected, whatever. And so for Malachi Starks, if he's there at the end of the first round, I'll forget pass rusher. I would take Malachi Starks.
Bobby ranked as the 7th best player. That's where he had him. And he dropped, and he said that the interceptions, it wasn't as much because they moved him around a ton, right? And we've seen that with Kyle Hamilton here in Baltimore and the different impacts he can make from certain places on the field, but they move him around. And so he's saying, don't look at those stats and say, oh, well, he must have had a down year. He's like, no, if you watch the tape, if you watch these games, you know why the numbers went down. He didn't have the same opportunities that he had in 2023 when he had 3 interceptions. And so I just thought it was interesting. He answered the question I would have had when he said, oh, you got to get a pass rusher. But then he's like, but if you get my 7th or 8th ranked player all the way at 27 compared to the pass rushers that'll be there, he said, forget pass rusher and go with Malachi Starks. He's better than what people are saying, according to Mel.
One of 3 safeties that we've covered on this program as we're following the mock drafts that start to come in and that have been coming in now for weeks. The other 2, Nick Emanwari from South Carolina and Kyle Hamilton's former teammate for a cup of coffee at Notre Dame, Xavier Watts, before he left for, of course, the NFL. So I know I made a little gut reaction comment last week that I'm feeling more and more like it's going to be safety. That means they'll go guard.
Yeah.
They're going to go guard. But that's that. Now, what was funny is, to your point there a minute ago, he started off the interview with saying, hey, what's going to get them over the hump is pressure and edge rushers or an edge rusher in the opening round. But then that transition did. But if Malachi's there, you got to take Starks. And then he went on to, you just heard what he had to say. Well, let's go back to the edge rusher conversation, because later on in the interview, the guys either asked specifically about this player or he brought up the player himself.
No, they asked specifically about, you're talking about Shedeur Stewart?
We've spoken a lot about Shedeur Stewart, going all the way back to the combine. When Chris Sims came on this show and talked about the F the play up statistic that isn't one, which is the exact reason why he would take a flyer on Shedeur Stewart, because while the sacks and the production certainly were not there, He does have game-wrecking ability. He does have, I'm sure there's defensive line coaches out there, outside linebackers coach like a Chuck Smith that see him as untapped potential. But Mel, much like he was with Starks, did not hold back whatsoever with his opinion on the Texas A&M pass rusher, Shedeur Stewart, who has been mocked to Baltimore, but it's been probably over a month since there was legitimate buzz surrounding this conversation. So here's Mel on Shedeur.
I do not think they would take Shedeur Stewart. To answer your question, Ryan, no, I don't think Shedeur Stewart will be a Raven. It's just because of the fact that when you watch him, I didn't see the disruptive plays. I didn't see him beating a guy initially that he should have. I call him AOG. I kind of coined that phrase. You know what it stands for, right? Another occupation guy. That's AOG. So most of the guys you play against in college, I call them AOGs.
Yeah.
If you can't beat them, you're playing against the best in the world when you get to the NFL on a play-by-play basis, even if it's a backup. These are the best in the world playing in the NFL. These are AOGs, okay? So if you can't beat them, all of a sudden it's going to click in the NFL. So to answer your question, I think Shedeur Stewart, a defensive line coach will probably fight for him, say, I can take him.
Mm-hmm.
I can make him. If you're taking him in the first round, you better be thinking 10 to 12 sacks a year. That's what I always
right.
Finally got to that point this year, right? You got to be thinking first round pass rusher. I got to be getting double-digit sacks out of this guy. If I can't get that, am I going to take him? Look at Trey Hendrickson. What's he getting, 17 a year? He was a third-round draft choice.
Right.
So now Daniil Hunter didn't have many sacks at LSU. He's got 99 career sacks now. He was a fourth-round pick. So you have had outliers that have not had great sack production in college that have gone on to do it, but they're outliers. And Bill Polian told me and screamed at me, you don't draft outliers. Okay? If we have a range on a wide 9 that says a wide 9 has got to be 4.65 or better, we can't draft a guy at 4.71 for a 40.
Right.
Can't do it. So what's it take, guys, to be able to do? You got to have discipline. Part of being a great evaluator is being disciplined in your approach and not letting something happen and say, well, I'm going to make an exception to the rule. I'm going to do something away from what I normally would do, and I'm going to take a shot on this guy. Well, I guess you could do it once in a while. Can't make a living doing that. So if teams that say, hey, production, the final 7 games of the last 3 years at Texas A&M, he did not record a sack. That's the final 7 games of 3 straight years. 1.5. 3 years ago, 1.5. 2 years ago, 1.5 this year. That's 4.5 sacks in his career. There's guys had 4.5 sacks in a game this year. I couldn't do it myself. He's graded at a point where I have him on the board, that 25 to 28 area that I know he's going to go higher. And I've always believed if you're picking where the Ravens are, you got to get a guy on your board that's in the top 15. Mm-hmm. It's going to work that way. You're going to get a guy that's on your board, one of the best 15 players in this draft. It's not going to be Shedeur Stewart. For me, no.
Sarah, you thought that Steve Smith's phrase, jag, just a guy, was good? I think Mel just one-upped him. AOG, another occupation guy, meaning if Shedeur's not dominating AOGs at the collegiate level, good luck when it comes to the NFL. So that's his point, at least when it comes to the late first round. That's what the conversation surrounding for Shedeur.
Ooh, he buried Shedeur. He buried him. And you know what? Mel's been right before. Mel's been wrong before. He could be wrong on Shedeur. But I will say this. The reason why he's on TV is because he sticks his neck out. He sticks his neck out. And he does a lot of studying. And he actually has an opinion. I cannot tell you, Bobby, how many draft conversations I've been listening to trying to get ready for a week from this Thursday. And there's just so many people who it's just like, oh, okay, you gave me his stats. You gave me his, what's your opinion? And how is he going to project? And just a lot of people don't do it. So Mel may be wrong, but I do appreciate that he pounds the table. He's been pounding it for Malachi. He just buried Shedeur, and maybe he'll be wrong on both guys. Maybe he'll be right on both, maybe one or the other. But I like that he has an opinion. But yeah, when he's talking about here, he said the final 7 games, 3 years in a row, no sacks. And I do remember with Odafe Owe, people were saying, well, he beats his guy. He just has to finish. And that has been true in the NFL, where we'd see him be like, he would get off. He'd beat somebody. It's like, wow. And then he's right there and he doesn't finish. And that continued all the way up until last year where he began to finish more, although there were still some plays he left on the field, as everyone does. And so it's interesting because I remember, like you said, about a month ago, people were projecting Shamar here, and we didn't know anything about him at the time, right? So we're just reading what they say, and they're talking about, oh, he has no production. And we're all like, oh, no, thank you. We have that already in Odafe Owe. And then the combine came around, and in, shorts and a T-shirt, woo-wee, did he look good? He starts going up the draft boards, and now he's starting to settle back again. But he was also asked about some other pass rushers. Michael Williams, he brought up Green, but he wasn't so sure that they would be there. But you know what? You know who he did kind of like? And it was the same as Jason Smith from Huddle It Up Films, Donovan Ezeraku. Did I just say that right? Did I get it?
I think so.
I think I got it.
There's been a couple different pronunciations floating around, but yeah, he did go out of his way to bring that name up.
Yeah, he went out of his way. He talked about how much he liked him. Ryan said, do you feel like he's a Raven, though? Because the Ravens usually go after bigger bodies, and he says that's true. That's what the Ravens do, but he's got length. He talks about how Dwight Freeney could beat Jonathan Ogden back in the day when he wasn't a big size, but he had bend, he had long arms, all that kind of stuff. And so he's like, somebody's going to get him, in that, maybe late first round or early second. He's like, I don't know why he's not being talked about like the Michael Williams or the Shamar Stewarts or the Greens of the world. He's like, and so it's just interesting because Jason Smith we had on, he was Donovan was his positional favorite, and here's Mel Kiper bringing him up while just completely burying Shamar Stewart.
All right, how about we do this? There's one more clip of Mel Kiper, which is really good, I think, when it comes to the Shedeur Sanders conversation. But before we do, here's some food for thought, some statistical food for thought on the conversation that we were just having when it comes to limited production at the collegiate level and trying to project how that translates to the NFL level. What I have in front of me is a couple different things. Odafe Owe's collegiate stats versus his NFL stats, and I have Shamar's just as a reminder, even though we just heard from Mel. Shamar at Texas A&M over 3 seasons had 4.5 total sacks in 37 games. Okay? 37 games, 4.5 total sacks. Odafe Owe in 24 games over 3 seasons at Penn State had 7. Okay? We know what Odafe's turned into. He has become, he's a late bloomer, but he's coming off a Pro Bowl caliber type of season. He hit the double-digit category in the sack department for the first time in his career, and it was a big jump. He doubled his total from 2023, and that was after what? In his rookie season, he had 5. His sophomore season at the NFL level, he had 3, then went to 5 in 23, and then skyrocketed to 10 this past season. So,
and just to add to that context, Donovan Ezeraku had 16.5 last year.
There you go.
Last year. He add another, let's see, 7, 9.5, add another 11.5 his other 3 years.
Yeah. Look, I'm not advocating.
Talk to me about size. Talk to me about what he does on Sundays or Saturdays in the case of when he was at BC.
In no way am I advocating for the Shamar Stewart experiment at 27. Just giving some context. I'm really talking to live chat right now.
Yeah.
Giving some context to what Odafe's, the different players, different programs, different body types, so on and so forth. But Odafe's taken 4 years to get to the point where he can be referred to as a double-digit sack guy that still you're kind of left wanting more, but that they did exercise the 5th-year option, and clearly they felt compelled enough to invest that kind of money in him. So now that could be more of that could be more related to what the market as a whole is, because we know the outside linebacker pass rusher market is through the roof, especially for guys that are above Odafe Owe's caliber. So anyway, just some food for thought there when it comes to the Shamar conversation. Do you have anything else before we get to the last clip?
Yeah, just a little bit more if I can find it. Just a little bit more on this idea of like production versus projection, all that kind of stuff. I remember Matt Judon coming out of Grand Valley State, and he had just gobs and gobs of sacks. I'm trying to see if I can find it here. Schools. Okay, here we go. And people are like, oh, whatever. He was at a small school, but production is something. So at Grand Valley State University, which is not even Boston College, which is where Donovan's coming out of, he finished with he was the school's all-time leader with 35 sacks. 35 sacks. And so Donovan was 16 and a half, and then 11 and a half puts him not quite at 35, but he's like getting close to 30 at tougher competition than what. So, production does mean something, even if you're coming from smaller schools.
Sure. Good stuff. Good conversation. We got one more clip to put a bow on the Mel Kiper conversation before we get to some prospect visits that we've been seeing reports on. And this one has to do about Shedeur Sanders and potentially being, I think he's going to be the most compelling story to watch going into opening night, not just because he's a quarterback, but because of what's taken place just in recent weeks with the Giants seemingly filling up their room. And then just over the weekend, Sarah, Derek Carr had some news. He is now in jeopardy of missing all of next season for New Orleans. He has a shoulder injury that, as Ian Rappaport noted, threatens his availability for the season. He's currently weighing his options, including the possibility of surgery. So New Orleans right now is at 9.
I was going to say.
Is at 21. Yeah. Mel Kiper floated the idea of him potentially, and maybe it wasn't on the top of his mind that Derek has this potential looming surgery, but he does not like the idea of Shedeur Sanders potentially falling to 21. Here's why.
Sitting here in Baltimore, I'm a Raven fan. You're all Raven fans. Love the Ravens, right? Do we want Shedeur Sanders in Pittsburgh? I don't. Okay, because Shedeur's a winner, and he will find a way to get the ball to those receivers. This notion you can't play in Pittsburgh if you're Shedeur. Well, Brady played in New England and didn't have the great arm and didn't have any speed. Brady ran a 5.2 4.40 and had 24 vertical. That's the worst vertical and the worst 40 of any quarterback I've ever evaluated. Okay, you talk about where we are right now in terms of Shedeur Sanders. Could he be there with the Pittsburgh Steelers pick at 21? Could he fall in their lap? Ben Roethlisberger fell in their lap after Rivers and Eli went early, right? Mm-hmm. Look how that worked out. Ben Roethlisberger fell in their lap. Will the same thing happen with Shedeur Sanders? I don't think they'll take Jackson Dart. If Shedeur's gone, I've been told not for Jackson Dart because it may be a little too much Kenny Pickett there, right? Not enough upside, whatever you want to talk about there. Mm-hmm. I don't think Tyler Shuck's going that high either. Don't think it'll be Jalen Milroe necessarily, but Jalen Milroe's intriguing. If he can fix that accuracy, you got a special player.
So if we're watching the draft on the first night, and you hear Shedeur Sanders go in the top 10, one of those teams takes him early, we're going to get a big round of applause from you on the ESPN desk there?
Well, I'll be very, very satisfied that it's not going to impact the Ravens negatively, and the Steelers won't get the quarterback I would think they would want to see slide down that far. I don't have a problem with Tyler Shuck going there. Don't have a problem with Jackson Dart going there. Wouldn't have a problem with Jalen Milroe going there. But I don't want to see Shedeur in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform. And that could happen. That'll be our worst nightmare if that starts to happen. Maybe somebody will try to jump ahead of them and grab them. I don't know. I don't know what New Orleans is going to do at 9. They could take him. They could take Dart. They could not even take a quarterback. Okay? There are some that think they're not going to go quarterback. That's not going to happen. I think they could. Kellen Moore handpick his quarterback. If he likes one of the two, take him. We'll see. Shedeur's not probably going to go to the Giants. We know that now, right? He's not going anywhere past New Orleans. Where's he going to go? Then you get into no man's land. If it's not the Steelers, the Rams, now I keep hearing maybe the Rams won't take a quarterback. Will somebody else trade back in? Well, you know what happens here? Now, Pittsburgh doesn't get a quarterback. Pittsburgh has no 2. That's going to be the story of the first round. Aaron Rodgers started to slide, and Green Bay just waited it out.
Well, I mean, Lamar Jackson. How about Lamar Jackson?
Boomer Esiason, guys, ranked the 3rd best player in the draft my first year at ESPN in 1984. They had 3 picks in the first round, did not take Boomer. They took him in the 2nd round. The 3rd player on the board went in the 2nd round. Favre was 14, went in the 2nd round. Okay? It's happened before. It can happen again. Mm-hmm. So there's a chance that Shedeur could be there at 21.
First of all, this is going to annoy you, but Mel's 10 toes down for Shedeur's ability to transition to the NFL. Is he not? He's 10 toes. He's 10 toes down. And if he's got 11 of them, it's 11 toes down. Some people have 11 toes. Some people have 9. How about it? You're not seeing that many people stick their neck out there for Shedeur Sanders, but Mel is one of them. Yeah. And I think what's important to note here from the Pittsburgh perspective, we've talked about it a little bit in recent weeks, just for their draft strategy. They don't currently have a 2nd rounder because that's what they had to give up in part to get DK via trade. So does that change their plans? Obviously, what's going to change a lot of things is if they ultimately, if or when or whatever, they bring in Aaron Rodgers, either pre or post draft. But you would think, being that Aaron's only looked at as a guy that is a year or two away from calling it a career, that don't you have to pick a quarterback at 21 just to at least give yourself the option of not having to go a bridge if Aaron doesn't work out? I mean, that's how I would view it.
Do they have to go quarterback at 21? I don't necessarily think so. I mean, listen, if you miss with your first round pick on a quarterback, it sets you back. And listen, I get it. We've talked about it a million times. The league is divided into two types of teams, those with a franchise quarterback and those without. But those without make it a million times worse if they miss when they go after one with the first round pick and then they don't have a second round pick. So you're looking at potentially, say Shedeur Sanders is gone. Okay, let's say that he's gone at New Orleans. Or even if he makes it past them, other quarterback needy teams will know what Pittsburgh's doing and will want to jump up ahead of them. So I would be a little surprised. And since they don't have a second round pick, I don't know what kind of ammunition they have to move up. They would have to start using future stuff. I mean, to move up in the first round is expensive. You're probably are going to have to give up a future first rounder to do that. But it sets you back even more for sure. And so you're looking at, do I take a risk with somebody like Dart, or do I take somebody like Mel Kiper has them doing, Harmon, the defensive tackle for the middle of the line? And so it's like, which one is going to give you more franchise stability if you don't believe in these quarterbacks? Like, take a swing just to take a swing. I don't agree.
Well, here's what this is where my mind is. Aaron, as the Jets so painfully learned, can be a play away from potential retirement at this point. At 40 years old, that's just the reality of it. And we're just assuming that Aaron's going to be a Steeler. I don't know why it hasn't happened yet. Maybe it's going to be in 10 days from now, right before the draft. Maybe that gets done. But assuming that Aaron is under center for them, to me, it's like you have no idea where you're going from here. You have Mason Rudolph in that quarterback room. And so, yes, if you're not high on guys outside of Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, like the Tyler Shucks and the Jackson Darts, right, and the Jalen Milrose, because I think we could probably agree those three quarterbacks, probably pretty likely that they're going to be there at 21. Will Shedeur be there at 21? That's the big domino that hasn't fallen yet. And maybe, again, with Derek Carr's news, he ends up in New Orleans and this is all a moot point. But man, knowing that Aaron's future is so incredibly uncertain at the age that he is and how different he's looked post-Achilles.
Oh, their quarterback situation's bad, no doubt. I'm just saying what you just said of like, oh, you have to go for a quarterback with the first round. I don't agree with that. Not if they don't believe in him. Well, they have a bad quarterback situation, but they could make it worse by adding another bad quarterback instead of, pieces that could be franchise pieces, say like a Harmon along the defensive line.
I get it. It's like at some point, though, you got to give your friggin' fan base and organization some sort of optimism and hope for the future in terms of somebody that you can build around. And if
you don't want to become the Browns, though,
well,
where you're just swinging to swing.
Who wants to become Cleveland? But yeah,
which is what you're promoting here. Just an FYI.
No,
I don't think you are meaning to, but you are.
How? These guys are all projected to be somewhere.
Because you have a bad quarterback situation, you have to use your first round pick on a quarterback. That's what you said. Unless you're taking that back, I agree.
If these three quarterbacks are there, let's say Cam goes 1, Shedeur goes 9.
Yeah.
If Milrose, Shuck, and Dart are all on the board, I think they should select one of those three that they're highest on, assuming that they're all on the board at 21. I do. They don't have a second round pick. Rodgers could be done in a year from now. You need some sort of rebuild. You have missed time and time again since Ben Roethlisberger, and your quarterback room currently has a career backup, essentially. You got to go get your guy instead of a bridge the next year if Aaron doesn't work.
Okay, Bobby Cleveland, I'm going to move on. What I also like from Mel, he was like, again, he's not afraid to bury guys or stick his neck out. He's like, He's like, I don't want Shedeur there. Shuck, I don't mind if Shuck's there. As a Ravens fan, and later we didn't pull this clip, but he was like, I am unabashedly at ESPN pulling for the Ravens week in and week out. So he's talking from a draft guru expert and a Ravens fan expert saying, yeah, Shuck's there. That's cool. Milrose there. Yeah, that's cool. Dart's there. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So anyway.
Does everybody remember or know that Mel went to Calvert Hall, has Baltimore in his blood, and has been a lifelong Ravens fan? Like, if you watch the interview today on the lounge, you know that Johnny Unitas is his all-time quarterback. He rides and dies for the Ravens based on everything that we've been talking about. And I think he lives, I can't remember where he and Mrs. Kiper live, but I think it's just over the bridge. I want to say it's in the Kent Island area. But the best part about Mel is that since COVID happened, the dude just hasn't been in studio. Like, he just has his headquarters in his house. And I think he maybe he'll be on site for the draft in Green Bay, but I just love him. He's the draft guru. He's the OG of OGs. I freaking love this guy.
He's fun to listen to. Should we talk draft? Oh, do we have super chats, or should we move on to prospect visits?
Yeah, let's get some super chats in before the prospect visits, if that's cool. And Rave Kingdom restarts us off with I still can't believe you call me Bobby Cleveland.
You are Bobby
Rave.
Cleveland. You're sticking by it too.
You're ridiculous. Rave Kingdom is Rave Cleveland, whatever you want to call it here, because his guy Ben Cleveland is worth a hashtag today and worth $2, and that's what he wrote. That's all, folks.
Where was Rave Kingdom on Friday when I was getting yelled at wrongly about saying that not from you, from the chat?
Oh, are you kidding me?
Oh, we disagreed, but you weren't yelling at me. But the chat was having a meltdown. Some of the chat was having a meltdown that I called Ben Cleveland a bunt, meaning a small hit for the Ravens because he got a second contract. Rave, the chat was like just obliterating your guy on Friday. Where were you? Where were you?
That was hysterical. I'm shocked he didn't show up. I would have expected him to be lurking in the Cleveland shadows, ready to go, but he never came. Rave?
Osmodius,
Rave, go back and watch Friday's episode if you haven't already. Dreams says 2 Florida boys, Mello Dotson and Jaden Higgins, will be Ravens next year. And I'm sure the Ravens regret not taking Lamar before they took Hurst. Queon, if they draft Jaden Higgins in like the 2nd or 3rd round, I think we should just have him on when the pick hits. I think we should. He's been dropping in super chat, Sarah, about Iowa State wide receiver Jaden Higgins for months. We may have to bring him in. Sod Blitz 34 says Starks is a generational talent who had a bad year. So add Sod to the Mel Kiper camp, who wants Baltimore to select Malachi Starks out of Georgia at 27th overall. Dre Dog 679 chiming in today.
Dre Dog says Starks versus Imanwari is IQ versus athleticism. Now, Imanwari is smart. He relies the physical gifts first, much like Nate Wiggins. I watched Nick Imanwari all year being here in Columbia. Hashtag Bobby SC.
Still love that hashtag. He is recruiting me hard to South Carolina. Sod Blitz 34, another one, writes, would easily be our best free safety talent since Ed Reed. Talking about Malachi Starks. We appreciate you guys for being with us today.
Thank you, guys.
Over 1,800 concurrents on this Monday. We're 10 days out from the draft. Sarah and I have coverage coming up that night. It's a mega cast, 7 o'clock start. We'll bring you up until the 27th overall pick. And then will I be solo day 2? Is that correct?
No, but Saturday is going to be an issue.
Day 3.
Saturday is my daughter's birthday and her baptism.
We'll figure it out. But we're going to have coverage all 3 days. Just a matter of who, when, what. So we're looking forward to that. I forgot to tell you this just because our pre-show minutes were crazy. Jeff got back to me. The luncheon, the annual Liars Luncheon. By the way, Brian Spar was way out in front of this. So, Brian, can you let us know in the chat how you learned of the Liars Luncheon? Was it in The Athletic, one of Jeff's piece? Was it a tweet that we may have missed? the annual pre-draft press conference that the Ravens put on is tomorrow. It's an 11 a.m. luncheon followed by an 11:45 press conference.
Oh, I was mixing him up.
I know. So the luncheon begins at 11. The presser, according to Jeff, is at 11:45, which means mark your calendars accordingly. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. I have a 2:00 dentist appointment, and we typically and will be going live after the luncheon so that we can respond to it accordingly, so we can have a fresh show for you. So we will not, essentially, the moral of the story is we will not be live at noon tomorrow.
What are you going to do about your dentist appointment, bro? That's a conversation for offline, but you think we're going to be done by 2?
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see how the timing of this works out.
All right.
Let me just pull up my calendar real quick while we're live.
What time did you say the press conference is? At 12 what?
It's an 11:45 presser, 11 a.m. luncheon, and my dentist appointment's not till 2:30. So it's going to be tight, but we might be able to pull it off.
We can do it. I'll be tweeting. You'll be cutting it up. Right?
It'll be good.
It's usually how we do it.
It'll be good. We'll figure it out. All righty. We are fully caught up to speed. By the way, in the interest of announcements and whatnot, Emory Hunt will be joining the show this Thursday from Football Game Plan at 12:30. I know you guys love him, and he loves us because some of our viewers are like his buddies from high school, from home. And so we're really looking forward to having our own draft guru, Emory Hunt, back on the program 12:30, and that'll be 1 week out to the NFL draft. Sarah, prospect visits. Go right ahead.
Yeah, so not a surprise. The Ravens have been signaling a change at kicker. And so according to Justin Mello, who writes for the Draft Network, kicker Ryan Fitzgerald will have a private workout with the Ravens, along with the Patriots and Commanders. He says there's a ton of interest from kicker-needy teams in Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald is a Florida State kicker. He was a finalist. He was the top 3, I believe, for the Lou Groza Award, which is given to the nation's top kicker. He did not end up winning it, but top 3. He went a perfect 13 for 13 this past season. That seems like not a lot of opportunities. Are they scoring a lot of touchdowns? Justin says that he's arguably the top kicker in the 2025 draft. And Justin did a Q&A with Ryan Fitzgerald. And I thought this one question was pretty good. You can go over there and read the whole Q&A if you'd like. But he asked Ryan Fitzgerald about how he's been able to turn things around. So obviously he was 13 for 13 this past season. He was 90% kicker in 2023, which was a big improvement from a difficult 2022 season. He said, well, what did you do these last 2 years to be so good and change so much from 2022? Ryan says, going back to that 2022 season, I changed my swing and my kicking approach. I switched back through 2022 after a rough start. I actually finished 2022 strong, he says. I kept working on the swing I was comfortable with. Once I found it, it was over, he says. That's how I imagine him saying it. I bet he was more like, once I found it, it was over. It was over. He says, I've improved that swing over the years. I finished college with 2 great seasons because of it. We talked about kickers a while back, Bobby, but this is Mel Kiper's top 10 kickers and punters.
Top 3. There he is. Fitzy, top 3 out of Florida State.
He's really top 2 because number 2 is a punter.
Good call. Good call. And we've talked about a couple. Yeah, like you said, we've talked about a couple other guys as well. But this is the due diligence, or maybe more, that again is not a surprise given the current situation at kicker in Baltimore. Some other prospect visits while we're at it. Linebacker continues to be one that the Ravens at least appear to be doing some level of due diligence on. And Sarah, I think you're going to like the way that this first name is pronounced. Mr. Mondin down in Georgia. I went and looked it up prior. His name is Smile. Smile Mondin is visiting today with the Ravens, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter. So that's at least the second.
I believe they had UCLA linebacker Swissinger. I believe they had him in for a visit.
I think you're right. Swessinger,
who Mel Kiper also really liked.
He did. And he'd be sort of an inside guy, which would bring in competition to that room for Trenton Simpson and whatnot. So now Harbaugh is on record, a few weeks back for referring to Trenton as I'm paraphrasing, but the shoe-in weak side starter early downs. So we'll see how that shakes out, and what that even means. I don't know if there's,
That's all talk in the offseason.
Yeah, I'm not putting a ton of merit in it, but he's on record for saying something along those lines. Schefter also sharing that Alabama A&M offensive tackle Carson Vinson is visiting with the Ravens today. So a busy one at one winning drive. And a third player, back to the safety position they go, Ian Rappaport, Virginia safety, noting Ian Rappaport. I made it seem like Ian's the Virginia safety. Yep. Jonas Sanker is the Virginia safety. Ian Rappaport is tweeting about Jonas Sanker, and he refers to him as one of the draft's best at his position. He's got a slew of visits this week, 5 total, and he's got a trip to Baltimore coming up, along with Commanders, Panthers, Lions, and Falcons. So,
you think the Ravens are going to draft a safety?
The question becomes when. When will they?
See, but this one for sure. I'm glad they had in previously Simmons, right? Offensive tackle out of Columbus at OSU. So they've had him in, and now here's Carson Vinson. Is he Alabama? Alabama A&M.
A&M, yeah. And it's also
it's crazy how they have similar colors here.
Oh yeah.
Are they just trying to copy here? What are they trying to do?
I was gonna say if you did a double take, you might think it was the Crimson Tide.
Seriously?
But and then it's also notable just for a different role, more of swing. We built an episode last week around George Fant being potentially of interest. So just kind of catching you guys up to speed on prospect visits. A lot of them are happening right now pre-draft, and I'm sure that'll continue in the coming days. Are we pushing what we thought we might to later in the week?
Yes, let's push it.
Cool. Look forward to what you have to share, though, later on in the week. Probably going to end up being Wednesday, realistically, because we'll have a ton to sift through, I assume, tomorrow from the luncheon. But I just want to throw this in here because we had James Ogden on last week from the UK Ravens. And Sarah, he kind of teased that a big announcement was coming. And here you have it. There's going to be a UK Ravens crew that will be announcing one of the 11 picks coming up next weekend at the draft. So it's notable, one, because there's such a contingent out in the United Kingdom and really particularly the London area for Ravens fandom. And I know you know that from the time. Well, I know you lived in London.
I lived in Cambridge.
Excuse me, Cambridge. Yeah. But did you go out there for the Jacksonville game?
No, I wasn't there during that same time.
Okay, gotcha. That's right. I'm sorry. That was Wait, no, I thought that was 2017.
I lived in Cambridge in 20. Let's see, my son was born 29. I think about 2010.
Oh, okay. Well, what I'm asking is during the debacle Jacksonville Ravens game, did you travel over?
No, I did not.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes, I was still working for the Ravens.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Anyway, cool opportunity here just within the last couple of weeks of this joint partnership that the Ravens now have access to marketing rights and whatnot to be more involved over there in the UK. And I know we have plenty of listeners and subscribers that hail from over there and are with us every day. So congrats to those guys. We're looking forward to the pick coming up next weekend. And I will let you talk about Childs.
Yeah, Childs Walker. And I literally could not find a better picture than this to represent him. It's blurry. The one on his Twitter account is blurry. I looked for other ones. This is it. He stays in the background for sure. But Childs Walker, longtime columnist for the Baltimore Sun, tweeted over the weekend, or it might have been Friday after our show. He said, "Today is my last at the Baltimore Sun after 24 years. Thanks to every colleague, editor, source, and reader who made it fun and hard and helped me get better. It hurts to watch a great civic institution crumble, but I got to do the work. But I got to do the work I wanted for the paper I grew up reading." So I know Jeff Zrebeck gave him a huge shout out saying he's one of his best colleagues ever. I just know I liked reading Childs. I felt like he was always informative. And when I, wrote late for work, I would always like to go read him. And now, the Vault, I always liked reading him also. Great writer. So this is the way of media, right? Some of the longtime institutions of media that we've been reading just weren't able to adjust in this digital age. And so they're shrinking by the day, but I have no doubt that Childs Walker will land on his feet because he is a talented journalist. And as we can attest to, Bobby, going independent is quite nice.
For sure. I was in plenty of media scrums during my days of access with Ravens Radio with him. Want to wish him well and congrats on a great run at the Sun. Didn't get to know him all that well, but again, was kind of shoulder to shoulder with him and read his work often. So hopefully he pivots in the right direction for whatever he sees fit best next. And I know we both wish him well. And I just want to throw on top of just sort of the quick hit side of things here, Sarah, that it was about as tremendous of a possible weekend as you could have in golf. And it's not often that a final round coverage of the Masters becomes this transfixing, captivating type of like everybody who is from diehard golf fans down to a novice was all in. And it seemed like everybody turned their attention to final round coverage yesterday on CBS, which saw Rory McIlroy in the most ridiculous fashion somehow withstand blow after blow and mistake after mistake, but then hot streak after hot streak to win the Masters tournament, which marked a career grand slam for him, which meant he has now won at least one major in all four. That's done six. That has only been done 6 times in the history of golf, and it hadn't been done since Tiger. So it was the round itself was incredible. Bryson DeChambeau was paired with him as his partner in the final grouping. That meant that those guys would be featured throughout the entire day. There's a little bit of bad blood between the two of them. Bryson went to LIV, the Saudi Arabian formed league, a couple years ago and took a ton of money. Obviously a controversial, polarizing decision and a polarizing person too. Rory's been extremely outspoken to be loyal to the PGA Tour, something that he, Tiger, Scotty Scheffler, and others have throughout the last several years. And so there was already that hanging over them. And then to make matters even better and more entertaining, you got to go back to the U.S. Open last year when Rory missed a putt that ultimately allowed Bryson to win it. So he choked. Rory choked in front of the entire golf world. And so for him to come back after choking on the 18th green, by the way, and forcing a playoff, which he didn't want to be in the playoff. He had like a 6-footer or a 5-footer to win the tournament outright. Instead, Justin Rose and him go to a 1-hole playoff, and Rory stuck a friggin' approach shot within like 3 or 4 feet. And it was one of the most like check yourself moments that I've ever seen. And it was just, it had a little bit of everything, and I was glued the entire day.
Yeah, I'm happy for you. I'm happy for you as a big golf aficionado, fan, all that kind of stuff, player. I obviously didn't watch it, but I do remember getting on Twitter and everybody talking about him choking, but nobody had video of it. So I went and Googled, McIlroy choke. And instead what came up was him winning it all. And I was like, wait, what happened? I thought he choked away the entire thing and he ended up winning. So I'm sure that was, as a golf fan, absolutely, entertaining to watch for sure. Cause we love that in any sport where things go back and forth.
Sarah, he had a 2-shot lead going into the day. That was erased after the first hole.
Oof.
So it was just like the most deflating way to start your final round. He had the weight of the world on his shoulders. What I should have mentioned, he's been trying for 11 years to achieve this Grand Slam. So he had the entire weight of the golf world on his shoulders, and Tiger and Jack Nicklaus and all the golfing greats have anointed him years ago as somebody that was going to be a Grand Slam type of player. And so for him to ultimately achieve it, years and years and years after trying, it was just, it was an exceptional day of golf. And I just wanted to add this little snippet here because it's a great story and it puts a bow on the background of Rory McIlroy, who grew up in Northern Ireland in a very humble beginnings, I guess is the right way to say it. And I found this from Jared Dorfler, who wrote this piece. To fund his golfing ambitions, McIlroy's parents took on extra jobs. His father worked 100 hours a week. He cleaned toilets and showers at a local sports club in the mornings, served as a bartender at Hollywood Golf Club from 12 to 6 p.m., then returned to the sports club to work behind the bar in the evenings. Rosie, his mother, looked after Rory during the day and worked night shifts packaging rolls of tape at a 3M factory in Bangor County Down. Due to their conflicting schedules, McIlroy's parents rarely saw each other during this period. Jerry later said, "I had no idea what else to do. I'm a working class man. We wanted to give our only child a chance." After finding success as a professional golfer, McIlroy bought his parents a house in 2009 and said this, quote, "I'll never be able to repay mom and dad for what they did, but at least they know they'll never have to work another day. I'll do whatever it takes to look after them." So
I always tell my kids, one definition of sacrifice is bargaining with the future. They saw what was in their child. They saw what they had in him. Sacrifice for the short term, for something that you believe in, obviously for a higher good. They can be manipulated pretty well. But if you're sacrificing for the right things, does it pay off in the long run? And him being able to do that for his parents in the long run, that's what parenthood and childhood should be all about in the long run.
Well said. And the crazy part is sacrifice doesn't always guarantee success, And so when it does, it's just, man, it's what a story it was. So thanks for letting me get my golf fix in there. And I hope a lot of you guys enjoyed that final round coverage yesterday. Dreams hit us with another closing super chat here as we get ready to bounce. And he writes, if we take Malachi Starks, he needs custom purple Iron Man gloves or a custom Iron Man visor. It would be sick. Queon. All right, partner. Thanks to Manta Sleep for sponsoring this episode and for all the continued support that they give us on the back end as our brand sponsor. Just know when you support our brand sponsors, you are supporting the show, you are supporting us and our daily efforts year-round to bring you Ravens content. So we appreciate you. Anything else on your end? We'll catch up tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
Love it. Be on the lookout for. Here's what we'll do. Instead of making an announcement on the YouTube studio, we will adjust the time based on what Sarah and I come up with, which is our best plan of action tomorrow with the luncheon starting at 11:45. We will adjust the YouTube video itself. So typically you guys will have a notification at noon. Whatever you see is when we're going to try to project to start the show. Maybe it'll be 1, maybe it'll be 1:30, somewhere in there. So be on the lookout for that. For Sarah Ellison, I'm Bobby Trossett signing off from this Monday Ravens Lunch Hour live stream. If you could on the way out, please like the video, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of when we're dropping our daily live content. We'll catch up with you it'll be about 24 hours from right now or so for a Tuesday show after the annual pre-draft Liars Luncheon, getting ready for the NFL draft, which is 10 days from now. All righty. I'm rambling enough. It's time to go. See you guys. Talk soon.
Tomorrow.